Hello everyone and welcome back to another off the cuff movie discussion, just me reeling off about a movie, just getting my thoughts out there, and this time it's about Ingmar Bergman's 1982 movie Fanny and Alexander. Now Ingmar Bergman is a director who I've been fascinated with for a while now. He's ever since I saw The Seventh Seal, and just an absolute breathtaking piece of work. And one that was parodied by Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And then I saw Wild Strawberries, which is another masterpiece from the guy, and just an absolute a director who understands. He's a real philosopher of life and a guy who understands life and delivers his ideas and his messages in films in such a poetic way. And Fanny and Alexander is kind of considered his magnum opus by lots of people. It was intended to be his final movie before retiring, and it's a very personal script for Ingmar Bergman, who, lots of the characters in the film are based on his life experiences. And it really does feel like a combination. I guess I haven't seen the films he did after this. I think he done mainly TV work. But it's a shame that it wasn't his final movie after watching it. I mean, that's how I feel after watching it, because it feels like an absolute culmination of a career, and it is a magnum opus film. It's an epic piece of work. It really is. It's an absolutely staggering film. Fanny and Alexander finished, and I was actually left feeling absolutely stunned, if I'm entirely honest. It's still struggling to get my thoughts out on it. It's such a film delivered in such a novelistic way. It's a film that wraps you up, and it's world of this family. Basically, it's about two siblings, two youngsters called Fanny and Alexander, and their large family during the first decade of the 20th century Sweden. And it's basically about their exploits as a family, but then something happens where Alexander and Fanny are actually sent to live with an evil bishop with their mother due to unforeseen circumstances, which I'm not going to spoil. And the movie takes a dark turn, and that's basically what the film is about. It's about kind of told through Alexander's eyes. Bertil Guv as Alexander, and Pernilla Olwyn as Fanny, but you also have Iwa Froling as Alexander's mother, Emily, and Jan Malshmo as the bishop, the evil bishop in the film. I mean, it's such a vast cast, and that's one of the things I think is extremely strong about Fanny and Alexander. The family members are so interesting, they're so captivating, they're so charming, but they're also human beings. The film does depict a very idealistic Christmas at the start of the film. Lots of fun, lots of happiness, and really, really charming scenes early on in the film. But you do get to see these characters, what goes on behind closed doors with the family, and the family, they're going through the struggles of life. And I think that Ingmar Bergman really understood that despite the happiness of life, despite those moments of sentimentality and charm and escapism, there's always issues for people hiding underneath the surface, boiling underneath. But he kind of looks at it as those moments of levity and happiness and charm are what keep us going, but you also can't avoid your own struggles. It's an incredible kind of combination of light and dark, this film, and Ingmar Bergman it just does it so exquisitely, so much patience. He really is able to shift between, you see, happy moments, charming moments, nostalgic moments, and then he's able to shift into just real examinations of humans going through struggle, but it still feels at home in the same movie. He's a director who really understood the light and the dark, and this is true in other films such as The Seventh Seal, just able to shift between those moments of just human emptiness, but then able to just make us feel full of life and full of passion again. It's just an incredible understanding for life and the depth of the human experience, I guess, Ingmar Bergman. And now this movie is 5 hours long. Now it was actually conceived as a television miniseries, which is obviously why it ran so long. It has been released as a film in its entirety. Now, you don't have to watch the whole film, the whole 5 hours. I mean, I've got a 2-disc DVD set, and you don't have to watch it all in one. I watched most of it in one night, and then I watched the rest of it the next night. I kind of wished I watched it all together. I just couldn't because of time, but it didn't the weird thing is with this movie is it does feel like you settle back into it very easily. So I guess you don't have to watch the whole 5 hours, but I do want to watch it all in its entirety at some point. Because it really does unfold like a novel, really does unfold so poetically, so lyrically. And it really is a film about imagination and childhood. You get Alexander living in a world of confusion, really. He doesn't understand why his life has a change. It's a film about change and how change can be thrust upon children and young people, and they're not prepared for it. They're really not prepared for it, and they don't know how to react to it. And I think that's a fascinating idea that Ingmar Bergman brings up. The fact that Alexander and Fanny have to go with their mum and live with this horrible bishop character is just such a bizarre thing to thrust upon young children. And I think we forget that in real life. I think children are just expected to go with the flow. And if there's a change in their life, so be it, suck it up. And I think Ingmar Bergman understood that, no, we can't just expect children to get over things. We can't just expect children to accept things. They are children. And Ingmar Bergman understands children in this film. He understands that Alexander's not just going to accept this. He's going to question. He's going to try and escape. And he does escape into his imagination. Film full of wonderful imagination. But, a film full of some charming moments of imagination, but also some dark and sinister moments. Alexander sees ghosts in the film. Alexander scares himself with his own imagination in the film. And the lines are blurred, I think, between what's real and what is imaginary. I still don't know. I mean, the film is told through a very dreamlike style. It does unfold that way. And I think I know what parts were Alexander's imagination and what parts weren't, but there are some moments that are kind of up in the air. And some of the moments with the ghosts are just very, very sinister and very dark. And again, Ingmar Bergman does not shy away. He is uncompromising when he needs to be. I mean, the character of the bishop, Jan Malmsjö, wonderful performance. This guy is just... he's an evil guy, and he hides behind the cloth. He hides behind being a Christian, being a bishop. And he presents to the world this lovely image. Sound familiar? Lots of... nothing against religion, but lots of people in the Catholic Church have that kind of appeal. They put out this lovely person image, but behind closed doors they're getting up to no good. And that's what this character is. And it's a staggering performance by Jan Malmsjö. He is a menace whenever he's on screen, and he just treats the children such an intimidating style, but it's a subtle form of intimidation. He's not like beating the hell out of them or anything like that. He gets into their mind, and he gets into their mother Emily's mind, and he corrupts her, and he's just very good at using religion to confuse and to intimidate and to create a barrier between Emily, the kids, and the rest of her family. He cuts them off from their family, and again, that's when the film goes very, very dark and uncompromising. And I do feel like this guy, he does have different layers to him. The weird thing is, there are certain moments, I mean, Ingmar Bergman doesn't actually shy away from the fact that the bishop is also a human being. He is evil, he has moments of pure evil, but there are moments where he sits there and he's kind of speculating on the way he treats people, and he has a different understanding of love. Doesn't mean it's true, doesn't mean it's right, but he has a different understanding of how to show love. He's more about love should be stern, and love should have a form of, I guess, aggression to it. It needs to be, in order to be real, it needs to be powerful, and you're willing to hurt the person you love to improve their life or anything like that, or teach them discipline. He takes it too far, but there are moments where he's just sat there and he's speculating on why he's hated, and you see a human being there. And Ingmar Bergman is so concerned with showing everyone in Fanny and Alexander as a human being, even the villains. You understand that there's probably things that have made the bishop this way. Doesn't make excuses for him, but you understand that he might be this way because of how he was indoctrinated. It's just a wonderful way of Ingmar Bergman, so subtly done, of having you care about every character, even the evil bishop, and you question what could have made him this way, and you have maybe a slight sympathy for him at times. But the film does make it clear he is the villain, and the moments between him and Alexander are, very, very uncomfortable to watch. I feel like Ingmar Bergman doesn't let up when he wants to show you how bad this relationship can be. He doesn't let up. He really doesn't. And it's when they get to the bishop's house, the film loses its kind of beautiful, exquisite, glowing style that Ingmar Bergman had created in the early going of the film, and it becomes empty. It almost becomes soulless. It becomes grey. It becomes, there's so much red and green and white, the Christmas colours early on, a wonderful, exquisite house that the family lived in. Now the family are cut off in this soulless house, empty, white, grey, no colour to it, and just a real dictatorship imposed upon them. And that is the centre point of the film, with Ingmar Bergman basically telling us that these sort of things can happen and be thrust upon you, and you have to learn how to deal with them. And sometimes it's difficult for children to deal with them. They don't know how to react. And it is a film that understands childhood so well. It understands the confusion. It understands the stress of childhood. You're still trying to work out yourself. You shouldn't have to work out these major situations. And it's about how parents can confuse their children. It's about how parents can fall in love with people and not care about their own children, or not think about their own children. I mean, Emily in this film, she falls in love with the bishop, but she eventually regrets it, but she thinks it's for the best. It's all about that kind of communication that can happen between an abusive figure and the children that the other partner doesn't see. It's a fascinating thing to, and then obviously it's about a mother realising that she didn't put her children first. The early parts of the film, you really do like watching this family. And there's constant moments of Ingmar Bergman letting you inside the family's head, letting you see what they care about, what they're scared of, what they want out of life. Every character has desires in this film. Every character has dreams in this film. And there's some wonderful scene early on in the film between grandmother character and her partner, where she muses about getting old. And that scene was just written phenomenally well. I have to give such credit to Ingmar Bergman, who he wrote the film obviously as well, and his understanding of how people deal with age, his understanding of how people fear aging. And it's also a film about, mortality, and that's such a beautiful moment, because she's depressed about getting old, but she's also happy, and that's a wonderful marriage that Ingmar Bergman is able to do. He's able to have characters be depressed but also happy, and that is what humanity is all about. We all have these fears, these stresses, these tensions, but we also are able to laugh in the face of adversity. There's a fantastic scene early on in the film, I think, where Alexander's father entertains the children by telling them a story about a chair. Now, it sounds silly, but he's talking about how this chair had such a history, how it was passed down, how it had, and it maybe has magical powers, and that's what this film is all about. That childhood imagination that we shouldn't lose. That we should imagine. We should play games with children. We should take advantage of the fact that they're still wide-eyed, that they're still willing to believe in magic, in hope, in happiness, And that scene's wonderful. I think it's a wonderful little story by Alexander's father, where he has the kids looking at him wide-eyed, and it's with a chair as well. So it shows that you can entertain children through the power of imagination with pretty much anything, and they will listen to you. And that innocence is what I like about that scene, that pure innocence, that you can be drawn into that. I think some directors choose to just present people as bad or present people as good. Ingmar Bergman presents every character as human. You know, he's obsessed with showing you what's underneath the surface. You know, we tend to judge people in life as evil, bad, good, you know, this and that, but it's never usually that simple. And Fanny and Alexander's a film all about grey areas and accepting that things aren't always what they seem. And there's so many little parables in the film, so many little philosophical whims and philosophical statements and statements about humanity and the human soul, and the fact that we're all searching for the answers, and the answers might not even be out there. There's a fantastic speech by one of the family friends who is very close to the children. He reads a story about ultimately the emptiness of life, ultimately the confusion of life, the destination that we can never get to. And there is discussions in the film about God versus atheism. You know, is there anything supernatural? There are ghosts in the film, but are they all in Alexander's head? We don't know. And the cinematographer, Sven Nykvist, I think really needs to be talked about in this. He's, as I say, those warm human interactions that he shows, the connection, the deep understanding of each other that we can have in those moments of embrace, of closeness. And yeah, he's so good at creating warmth through those images. And we also got him credit for all those scenes at the start at Christmas, just making us feel the true innocence of it, and the, as I say, the warmth. But when he needs to, he will go close up on a character, and they will just give you their spiel of their fears and their hopes and what their struggles are in life. And it can just snap just like that, this film. And it shouldn't necessarily work, because it does feel like you're watching, you know, it could feel like you're watching a different film. You're suddenly watching this soft and cozy film, and then suddenly you got a character talking about nihilism or something like that. But somehow just Ingmar Bergman wraps you up in his story, and you feel in good hands, and you're willing to have all those emotions run through you. Yeah, I'm just absolutely blown away. I mean, this is one of the great movies. It really is. It's an absolutely stunning piece of work. And Ingmar Bergman, you know, he's a director who I'm fascinated by, and I do now want to go back and watch a lot of his other films. It's a film about the fear of life, the anticipation of death. You know, death is talked about a lot in this, and you know, maybe Ingmar Bergman was contemplating his own mortality as he was writing this. I mean, I think that's pretty much obvious. It's a film about the confusion of how death can hit you out of nowhere, and not knowing what death is, and being concerned with not having any time left to look after your family or to fulfill what you wanted to do. It's all about the struggle that we share, but sometimes just don't want to talk about, that we're heading for the same place, but where is that? You know, and just an absolutely absorbing discussion of life, death, childhood, aging, relationships, family. And I was just absolutely blown away by it. Fanny and Alexander, I think it's one of the greatest films I've ever seen. Yeah, I'd highly recommend the film. You know, go in expecting a slow pace at times, go in expecting a long film, but also go in expecting one of the most epic and fantastic cinematic journeys. I mean, you really feel like you've been on a journey with this family at the end of the film. A lot of family films and films about family and childhood, they're just fluffy and cozy. This is fluffy and cozy, but it's also confronting serious major issues, but done in such a patient way, done in such a Ingmar Bergman's compositions, it is, you know, the paintbrush, the way he paints the pictures in this, it's just done so well. I'm absolutely blown away. Fanny and Alexander, a wonderful piece of work. I could sit here talking about it for much longer, but yeah, I really recommend you guys watch this film. Let me know in the comments down below if you've seen it. let's discuss Fanny and Alexander, and one of the great films. Yeah, and that's it. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you guys in the next video.